Kong Skull Island is the second film in the now official MonsterVerse, following 2014's Godzilla. We now have yet another property trying to be Marvel. It's true. In this film, we have a group of people, some scientists, some soldiers, who are sent to investigate an uncharted island that has been found, known as Skull Island. And of course, when they get there, there's a whole lot of monsters and a big giant ape, also known as Kong, and John C. Reilly. So this is bound to be great. Guys, I grew up with King Kong. King Kong is something that's special to me. When I was a kid, I rewatched King Kong vs. Godzilla on VHS tape over and over and over, and despite how terrible it really was, I loved it. And I actually enjoyed Peter Jackson's King Kong, and of course the original, and even the Jeff Bridges King Kong in the 70s. There's a trend lately in Hollywood, and that trend is to pluck a director from indie obscurity and give them a gigantic franchise. They did it with Mark Webb. After 500 Days of Summer, they said, here, have Amazing Spider-Man, see how that goes. They did it with Gareth Edwards. After Monsters, they said, here, have Godzilla, see how that goes. They did it with Colin Trevorrow. After Safety Not Guaranteed, they said, here, have Jurassic World. Let's see what happens. And once again, the director of The Kings of Summer, a pretty good independent movie, is now helming Kong Skull Island. I don't know why they're doing this, but with this film, I think it shows. There are some really impressive sequences in this movie. There are some very fun action sequences in this movie. When King Kong punches things, it's entertaining. It's a big, gigantic monster having fights with other big, gigantic monsters. And it looks cool. And that's about the best this movie has to offer. The characters that populate this film are hollow and boring, bland shells of human beings that are just expendable nothings that are thrown into a script so that Kong can probably kill them, and we won't care, but we'll have fun because the third act is action-packed. Rogue One did the very same thing. They populated a film with a bunch of references to other things that we know and like, that we've seen before, that make us excited, that get our inner fanboy or fangirl squealing, and they have some bland, who-gives-a-shit characters involved with it, so that eventually in the third act they can have a whole bunch of really impressive sequences, and you leave on a high note thinking, oh, that was a good movie. With this film, I'm not taking the bait. Tom Hiddleston's character is met in a bar. He has a very poorly edited sequence where he takes some guys out with a pool stick. And I guess he's just kind of a cool badass guy who knows how to track animals and scents. So they ask him to go to this island, and that's his character. He has one scene where he has a heart-to-heart with Brie Larson where he mentions something that happened once in his past. And that's really all it is. It's one of those character scenes. That's, hey, we just realized Tom Hiddleston is really nothing in this movie, and the actor is probably telling us quite a bit that he really needs some character. We really need to get Hiddleston off our back. All right, we'll write him a scene where he says something happened to him once. There you go. There, he has a character now. Brie Larson in the film plays a photographer. That's her character. She takes pictures of things. There's one moment where Samuel L. Jackson looks through her form and goes, whoa, you were in the shit. All right. Yeah, good for you. That's her character. She's seen a lot, and she's taken photos of all of it. Besides that, she's bland as hell. There are two interesting characters in this movie, Samuel L. Jackson's character and John C. Reilly's character. John C. Reilly's been on this island for quite some time, and you learn a lot about his backstory. He actually has a history, and all of it is just him walking around in a circle telling us what happened to him. It's just a gigantic exposition scene where he literally takes the characters to this big room with paintings and hieroglyphics and sculptures of things so that he can tell everyone his history and the history of this island. And Jackson's character has a vendetta. Early on in the movie, he has a moment in a phone booth where he gets some orders and he gets all excited. He gets giddy because he gets to go out and do something. You can tell that as a character, he doesn't feel alive unless he is at war or has some orders. So he makes up this big vendetta, which I won't get into spoilers for you because obviously the movie isn't out yet. But his character, it was intriguing. There was something to him. Everyone else in the movie is just an attractive person who can run in slow motion and throw some grenades, and that's about it. Toby Kebbell has a son at home who he writes letters to. I guess there was something there. But for the most part, all of the characters in this movie are a major disappointment. They're just expendable bodies for Kong or other monsters to play around with. Let's talk about the setting, Skull Island. I was so excited to see what they could do with this location. I was so ready to see what they could do with such a cool environment. Let me put it to you this way. Do you remember when we heard that The Jungle Book was going to be shot entirely in a studio, and everyone lost their minds and we were all worried it was going to look really bad and not realistic and it was going to look like a green screen mess? and then it ended up looking amazing. Skull Island is that film that I was afraid the Jungle Book was going to be. Despite the fact that they actually shot a lot of this movie on real locations, there are entire sequences that just look like they were shot in a green room. In the third act of the movie, there's a sequence where Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson are standing in front of King Kong, in between him and Samuel L. Jackson. And this entire scene looks like one of the Star Wars prequels. The worst green screen in the Star Wars prequels. I could not believe what I was looking at. The 3D also really did not help. It's very distracting, and it feels out of place. The film is often trying to be a 1970s war film with a lot of CCR music, and it just doesn't mesh with this world that they're also trying to build with King Kong. And since all of the characters are so horrifically bland, I just really did not give a shit about anyone. Also, let's talk about the directing and the editing. It's rather bad. It's distractingly bad. All of the sequences where King Kong is beating things up, it's a big, epic, wide shot, and it goes for a long time, and it's really entertaining. Whenever it goes to just character scenes, there's a very abrasive, almost visually aggressive way that this film is edited together, and it got on my nerves very fast, and I was very sad to actually be kind of annoyed with the way the film was cut together. Tonally, the film is completely off as well. The attempts at humor fall flat in almost all respects. John C. Reilly has a couple good laughs, as well as Samuel L. Jackson, and beyond that, it's just basically because those two actors are so likable and funny. It's not really the script, it's just them bringing their own charisma to some very stilted dialogue. Then there'll be sequences where Brie Larson is trying to connect with Kong emotionally, and it feels so out of left field. Then all of a sudden there's a lot of slow, fast-mo that reminded me of the way Michael Bay directs action. I'm not exaggerating. This film was a major disappointment for me. I didn't like a single character in the movie. Kong has one really awesome fight scene, and beyond that, it felt like an attempt to ape, no pun intended, the Marvel routine. There's even an after-credits scene. It all just feels like a big attempt to try to recreate the Marvel success route, and I am not buying it. I'm going to give Kong Skull Island a C-. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys. You might enjoy this film if you just want to see Kong punch some things and you don't give a shit about characterization or anything else like that. But if you were hoping for some engaging characters along with Kong punching things, I don't think this is your film. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. And as always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.